What do you miss the most on keto? If the answer is potatoes, you've come to the right place. In this video, I'm going to show you how I make keto mashed potatoes. And don't worry, you're not using cauliflower. You're not going to be in the kitchen for 3 hours mixing all sorts of powders and other things together to get mashed potatoes. And you're definitely not going to use potatoes because there's no quicker way to derail your keto journey than eat a bunch of mashed potatoes. But you can eat these, feel good about them, and ditch the guilt with these keto mashed potatoes. I've got a secret ingredient that I use that I'm going to show you in this video that will fool everybody. Nobody's going to be able to tell the difference between these and regular mashed potatoes. And I'm going to show you 2 versions of these. One, a more rustic version, and one, the perfect mashed potato, only keto and low carb. So stick around, let's get our tater on, and let's get into it right after this. So there's a lot of great keto side dishes. I have recipes for a lot of them, but this one is one of my favorites. Because any restaurant you go to, or anybody's house you go to, there's always mashed potatoes. And they're so delicious. And now you can have them without the carbs. This goes great with meatloaf, steak, chicken, fish. Basically, it goes great with everything. And if you've got some family members that are just kind of up in the air about keto and I'd like to try it, but let them try this and see what they think and let me know. So let's get right into it. I'm going to show you the ingredients you need to put together these keto mashed potatoes. So let's start by making the rustic version of this first. This reminds me of some red skin mashed potatoes. Super delicious. The first thing you're going to need to do is fill up a pot with some water. You're going to need to get that on the stove on high heat so we can boil that piece quick. Now you're going to need a stick of butter. You're going to need some heavy whipping cream. You'll need some pepper, I like fresh cracked, and some salt, either pink Himalayan or Redmond's, whichever you prefer. You're also going to need some sour cream, and I'm going to use my secret ingredient in the next version of these, but the vegetable you're going to use is radishes. Now this is how I like to prepare these beautiful radishes. We're just going to chop off that little root like that and chop off the greenery. Now for this one we're leaving it rustic, so that red skin's really going to look good in there. So the easiest way that I've found to prepare these is just cut them in half. Now you can cut them into quarters if you want, but to me it seemed a whole lot easier just to cut them in half, and they cooked in the same amount of time. And I've tried them both ways. So after you've got them all cut in half, you're just going to dump them into the boiling water. Pick up any that you dropped trying to be fancy, and then we're just going to set a timer for 10 minutes. Now it's time to use a tool that since I started keto I have not used a lot at all until now. This is my potato masher, the best one I've found, and it's going to go through these radishes really easy. So after the radishes have finished boiling for 10 minutes, we're going to take them out, take them over to the sink, and give them a good drain. After they're pretty well drained, we're going to put them back in the pot. I'm going back over to the stove with them and cook them again just for a few minutes to get rid of all this excess moisture. Now you don't have to do this if you like a little bit thinner mashed potato, but it really helps a lot if you want a nice thick creamy consistency to do this step. So after you got that excess moisture out, we're going to go in with some of that nice butter and then put it back on the heat. We're going to let that butter melt down, and I'm going to help it out just a little bit with my spoon. And if that's not working fast enough, out comes the potato masher. I'm going to mash these radishes up proper, and then we'll move on to the next step. Hey, if you like this mashed potato video, make sure you hit subscribe right down there. It lit up for you. And you'll know anytime I make another tater video or any of my other side dish videos. So this is what it should look like once it's nice and mashed. Now, if you want it a little bit drier, you can cook it a little longer. But I like to go in at this point and just add in my heavy cream. And then after that, it's time to go in with the sour cream. So I'll add that in now. Then I'm going to give it a good stir until it looks like this. I'm boiling it down just a little more and adding in the pepper at the same time. So I want it just a little bit drier. So then after you got all the pepper in there that you think you want, it's time to go in with the salt. And make sure you mix it up really well. And I've said it's rustic. It kind of reminds me of the red mashed potatoes, although it's more of a pinkish tint. Once you boil those radishes like that, it tends to lose a little bit of that red color. Now just let it boil for a few more minutes and I'll go in and get the texture I want with that potato masher. On the next version I'm going to make, which is coming up right after this, I'm going to use an immersion blender. You can use it on this one as well if you want a little bit creamier texture. And it goes great served with my meatloaf. And if you haven't tried that recipe yet, I'm going to leave a link up above and in the description so you can make this delicious meatloaf. You will absolutely love it. Now let's just get into these good old country mashed potatoes. You're going to need some butter. You're going to need some heavy cream. You're going to need some pink Himalayan salt or Redmond's, either way is fine. And some pepper, very similar to the other recipe. You're going to need your radishes. And the secret ingredient that gives it the flavor exactly like mashed potatoes is this mashed potato flavor concentrate. I'll leave a link down below so you can order it. It's a game changer. You're going to need an immersion blender for this one. And like I said, you could use it on the last one too if you want those to be a little bit creamier and less rustic. First thing we got to do here is prepare these radishes. So I'm using a slightly different method to prepare these. And man, look at how good those radishes look. And once you eat them, you're going to know they're delicious. For these, I'm going to peel these radishes because I want the white color. I want it to look just like and taste just like homemade mashed potatoes. So that's what I'm going to do. Now when you're peeling these, they don't have to be absolutely perfect. Once they're boiling, it's going to get rid of a little bit of that red, but try to get as much red off as you can, and you can even touch them up in just a little bit. Now it does take a little bit of time to peel all these radishes. I'm not going to lie about it. YouTube makes it look easy, but it does take a little time. But if you want those perfect mashed potatoes, and you're trying to trick somebody, or you just want that nice look on the plate, this is the way to do it. So just gather up all the radishes. We're going to go over to the sink. We're going to rinse them really, really well. Make sure and get off all the little red parts that you can. You may need to go back in and redo some of them as well. Get some water boiling on high heat. And while that water is coming to a boil, that's when I'm going to cut all these in half. You can do quarters like I said on the earlier video, but it really does just fine cutting them in half. And once you've got them all chopped in half, we're going to gather them up because they're on their way to their final destination. Well, almost the final destination. Final destination is when you eat them. We'll move them into our pot of boiling water, and I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit of salt to the water just to help it along, all the seasoning it can get. I'm going to go in and cook them until they're fork tender. And you can try to wrestle with them like that until you finally get one. Or much more easily, you can just fish one out and take it right out of the pot and put it on your countertop and try it that way. It's a little bit easier. And when your fork goes into it easily just like that, then you know that they're done and we're ready to go on to the next step. While these are hanging out and draining, just add some butter in. I'm going to use a whole stick because I like them buttery, and just melt that down. And you can always help it along with a spoon or whatever you got that you want to use. And once that butter is melted down good like that, we'll go ahead and add these radishes right on in. Now it's time to help them along get mashed. So I'm going to take this underutilized potato masher and throw it in the pot and mash these down nice and proper. Now we're going to use that immersion blender that I talked about, but I just like to do this to help break them down a little bit, get that butter in there really nice, and get all those flavors together. Now it's time to season them with the black pepper. Then we're going to go in with the salt, and then add in the secret ingredient, the mashed potato extract. And we'll keep mashing it up and getting all these flavors right until you're happy with it. Now it's time to add in that heavy cream, and we'll break out the immersion blender. This is what's going to get it down to that mashed potato texture. And if you like it a little bit more creamy than what I do, I like to leave just a few chunks in mine. Then you can immersion blend it for as long as you want, or throw it in a high-speed blender. Either way will work fine to get the results that you want. And now comes the best part of the entire recipe. Now it's made, I can pour them into a bowl, and I'm going to eat these right alongside my meatloaf. But eat it alongside anything that you want. It is great with just about any dish. Anything you'd have mashed potatoes with, this is going to work perfectly, and you're going to love it. You know what goes great with these potatoes? My keto brown gravy. I'm going to put that video right over there so you can make it to put on top of these potatoes. Thank y'all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.